she has this upset that doesn't seem to really be about me a lot of the time. And I'm reading about avoidant dismissive. Many men have asked us about this. And so we're going to talk about this today here on the Sino Show with myself, Jeff, and Cynthia. Here's a quick example of a man that posted in the forum a few days ago. He hasn't labeled his wife in a particular way, but this is the pattern that we see. And I'm going to ask Cynthia about this. We have another story we're going to get into today, and I want to hear your questions if you're here live as well. This man wrote, I could use some outside perspective. Things have been great with my woman lately. Last weekend, I started to feel like she was pulling away a bit. I didn't think too much about it. All of last week, she seemed distant, not really texting me much at all. I stayed with her Wednesday, and she was very clearly distant. Last night, I texted, I love you, and got no response. After a couple of hours, I texted again, is everything okay? And a bit later, half hour later, she responded, as okay as they can be, but I need some space this weekend. To which I said, okay, I'm here if you want to talk. That was the end, and I've not heard from her today. He wrote this on, I believe, Saturday. He said, I've struggled with how best to handle this now. Do I not try anymore, not contact her for the rest of the weekend? Do I send another text and say, hope you're having a good day kind of text, or maybe just a heart emoji? Do I somehow, as Jeff says, lovingly insist that she talk to me about it? So we can talk about what that means later in this call, what lovingly insist twice, what I teach there. Should I text her again, basically, he's asking. And he got support from men in the forum, which was fantastic. And Cynthia, start us here. What are you seeing when this woman, they're separated right now? Things have been great recently, and then all of a sudden she becomes distant again. She says, she's slow to respond to his text, and she says, I need space this weekend. So should he text her again? What is she going through that may not necessarily be about him in this idea of distance and pursuer, please?
Yeah, I think the thing that hits me most is if we're in the frame of what if it really isn't about the current situation, where instead of feeling into what is her story about herself, a woman who's living with the story that there are things she has to take care of all by herself. And either that's the only way she knows who she is, that's the only way she can be safe. Maybe even as a much younger person, she was shamed into, this is something that you don't let anyone else in. You have to be on top of. You have to be the one, be unaffected by anyone else and take care of your stuff. And so there's a real, it's not an independence, but it's a belief, a story that there are some things that she has to be her own island on.
Her own island on. Do you think that attachment styles are set in stone? Here's a quick graphic: secure, anxious, avoidant, and then fearful or disorganized. And many men have the sense that their wife is avoidant or dismissive, at least right now. Is that something that's set in stone? We'll talk about these triggers here in a moment. Do you think these styles are set in stone?
That's a great question. I mean, I happen to believe every human being carries some sort of flavor of this in their life. Do things stay set in stone for a woman? Yes, unless she physically, somatically feels something different. And this is why in this work I feel so honored to interact with men like you, because it's the things that she gets to feel from you, feel in you, that can be the things that shift her, that can make her the parts of her that are stone more malleable, uh, that can actually teach her nervous system a little bit of a different way.
Well, let's talk about that. What she might experience in a different way from us. Behavior triggers that trigger avoidance. On the right here, this picture, disrespect of space or alone time. So pushing too much and when they want space or alone time. Number two, excessive need for communication. Three, big displays of emotion. 4, assumptions on how they're feeling. 5, clinginess and codependency. And 6, being, quote, controlled by their partner, right? If they want emotional distance, this type of person that has dismissive avoidant attachments may have difficulty acknowledging and understanding or expressing their emotions. These are all the bullets men say, wow, yeah, my wife sounds a lot like this. Independence, they may value their freedom and independence over intimacy. Self sufficiency, they may not want to rely on others and may want to rely on themselves. Difficulty trusting, they may have difficulty trusting others. And ending relationships, they may end relationships to regain a sense of freedom for their own selves. And in the chat, Jeff wrote, maybe a tendency towards one attachment style, but I pulled 180 on my own. Yeah, certainly. So I don't think these are set in stone, right? Causes, dismissive, avoidant attachment may originate from early childhood interactions. Okay, so that's the story of a man. The point there is it could be a man, it could be a woman, where this man had these childhood experiences where he didn't feel like he could go home. He wasn't settled at home. He never felt safe there. So he went and did other things. And his example was friends and anime and video games, and that's what they bonded over. And now in therapy, he's working on being able to feel safe and trusting and build that sense of home at home. And many men, whether it's a man or a woman, many men have that story, but with their wife, where their wife is either at work or diving into parenting, or she's with friends or on her phone, and she's trying to find a place that she feels safe, maybe because of childhood things. And this is what we're talking about today, which is this title of today. Maybe her upset isn't really about him. We have another story of a quote husband's eyes being opened through this, and their relationship is going amazingly now. So, Cynthia, before I press play on that clip, you talked about a woman wanting and needing to experience different energy, different emotions with her man for her to be drawn or desire to feel something differently within her attachment. Say more about that, please. How do you mean?
Yeah, and I guess going from if I purely am in the woman's frame of mind, her chemistry, talking things out, reading the right book, doing all the things on the outside is not necessarily going to give her a new experience internally. So, like this example, if she's never in her life really experienced what full-hearted, grounded, redwood, sacred masculine energy actually is as she receives it in her body, she doesn't know that exists and will run on the track of only what she knows. It's the eye opener to her when she does get to experience that with someone like you, even if it's, 20 years into the relationship, she feels something new. That's the game changer. And again, there's like this dance because if she doesn't know what that feels like, it's really hard for her to lean into it. But she also has to have self-responsibility in that it's there in you, and she actually has to take a step toward being willing to feel that
Hmm.
as well.
So it has to be grown within someone first. Someone has to lead. And that's what we're here doing. You're here. That's why we're speaking with you. That's who we work with is men that want to lead through this spot. And so I saw some other men come in as well. It's fantastic to have you guys here. Anwar came in and Eddie's here and Gareth came in, a bunch of other guys too. So who has a story that you're facing right now of you're trying to welcome her into more openness with you, to shift the her attachment tendency? Who has a quick example of that right now? I'd love for at least one man to come in. So unmute yourself, one or two guys to come in would be great.
My story. I've been you know, trying to slowly work and try to like invite her into like doing more things. Uh, we had we had one time we went out for coffee, did the coffee invitation pretty much. We were supposed to go out for about an hour. That lasted about 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
We were out there, because we get along very well. I mean, we could talk for hours. You know, uh, with her is trying just to like make her feel safe. That's the barrier that I'm trying to like hammer down pretty much that wall. Our 20th anniversary came by in March 5th. So I had made plans, and I asked her, hey, would you like to go to this place? It's called Kid Cash. I don't know if they have something, but it's a restaurant. It's like very organic, very natural, like good food pretty much, like, and she was like, well, this was over text while I was at work. And she said, let me think about it. And she just left it there. I never again, she texted that, and I was like, okay, I invite, she can respond the way she wants, and she knows the anniversary is coming. If she wants to go, she can also reach out and be like, okay, yeah, let's do it, right? So I left it at that. Well, anniversary came and went by, nothing happened. The following weekend, she says something, oh, our kids are going to this birthday party from like 6 to 9. And I was like, oh, both of them? She's like, yeah, they're both going. And I was like, oh, okay. How would you feel about going out to eat? And she was like, sure, let's do it. So we went out to eat. So that went fine, talked about it, hang out for 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it was. Another time we were in the bedroom. So, she's starting to like accept the invitations pretty much. Because she told me when we went out for coffee, she's like, if you would have asked me this maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, my answer would have been pretty much no. So I imagine she's starting to feel a little bit safer to accept those invitations. The other day we were in the bedroom, we were just talking, just talking about work and her work, my work, and all that stuff. And at one point, she came in the bathroom, and we were like, and she got very, very close. I think she felt very close, and we were standing right next to each other, and I just went straight for it. So I kissed her. And I told her, I love you. And she said, I love you too. And she started crying. So that's where it is pretty much, kind of like that. And so, like the other night, said good night. And I kind of like slightly put my hand below her waist, kind of like towards her buttocks area, and just kind of like squeeze, right? Not like in a bad manner, but trying to like, right? Because you can't just give her friendly hugs every time either, because I don't want to be just her friend.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And she almost pushed with her elbow a little bit, when I was hugging her. The next morning, before she left for work, she said goodbye like 3 times. She gives me like 3 hugs pretty much before she left the house. I don't know if she felt bad or something. I don't know what it was, but I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm trying to like be more playful, really, and trying to test the waters, right? Because otherwise, in my mind, I don't want to have a roommate. I don't want to have just a friend. I want to be her friend, but I also want to eventually become her lover again.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. So it seems quite apparent that you're building trust again, and you're inviting and you're leaning in. And so,
Yeah.
Cynthia, what are you seeing in Caesar's energy and the way he's even talking about the story?
Oh, well, I enjoy, gosh, the sense of humor so much, Caesar, because I viscerally in my body, I get a sense of what it's like to be in your presence, which it feels warm and it feels grounded and it feels spacious. And another thing that hit me, the topic today is about like these attachment styles, avoidant, anxious, and what you illustrated with your story is even a woman who could be so stuck in her avoidant, if there's such a seesaw between the energies of even her coming the next day to you to give you 3 hugs, to me that really illustrates again that she is not set in stone, uh, and that she's even trying to find her balance of like, oh, I pushed too far, and now I feel like I gotta. I'm a little bit more anxious, and I think knowing that a woman can shift so quickly, it also illustrates your energy, Caesar, of that grounded, warm, solid presence that she can seesaw around.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm trying to like practice a little bit more. Kind of like, like how you go out in the ocean on a float,
Hmm.
right? You can either fight the waves or you can ride them,
Hmm.
right? So it's kind of like ride the waves with the emotions, right?
Yeah.
And just don't get frustrated, because I mean you might get tumbled every once in a while by the waves, but you get back on the float and ride them all over again.
Hmm.
You know, and that's what I'm trying to like practice, like not let it bother me.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah,
You know,
fantastic. Yeah, I love it. Glad you're here, Caesar.
yeah.
Thanks for the story. Yeah. Is there another man that would like to come in? If you have a question or if you want to tell us what's been going on for you? Yeah, Naboja,
I have
please.
I have a question. Hi guys, once again. It's great to hear such optimistic story. It gives me hope, but I cannot say that I'm going very well. I am trying, but when we talk, we live together. It's a limbo land, totally. No physical contact. Uh, when we try to talk, where every time she says, if we get a divorce, a small bit of me dies,
Hmm.
and it ends with a discussion of how you're gonna split the kids or something like that, and it's always ends bad. I don't understand how we always end up there, but if we go there, uh, there's no common compromise or something like that. She wants kids for herself to go with her, but I'm not quite okay with that.
Right, certainly. Well, so you know that you want to spend time with your children, and that's a non-negotiable for you. That's a hill you're willing to die on. Yes, Naboja? Yeah.
Yes, that's a hill I'm willing to die
Yes.
on.
And so that's one thing that she can feel your depth within, because there's so many, as Caesar was saying, riding the waves. When we begin this work, like you, we feel lost in the ocean, like we're on a tiny raft with no sail and no rudder, and we're just being thrown about. And then the storms roll in, and we wonder if we're going to be toppled over at any point. And that's often where men begin. Is that fair to say? Does that feel like where you are?
Yes,
Mhm.
I'm in such a place, I suppose.
Hmm. So yes, that makes sense. So the first order of business is putting a rudder down into the water and pulling a sail up so we can catch some of our own wind in life, regardless of her. So what brings joy to you, what brings health and strength to you, whether it's going for walks in nature, or going to the gym, or reading a great book, or listening to music, the very beginnings are bringing solidity within your own self. So there at least is that foundation for you. Do you feel like you've been growing that foundation?
Yes, precisely. I was just growing that all this time since November, but this is my weak spot.
Hmm.
It's not my non-negotiable terms, so it's I'm not okay with that, and we cannot agree with that. I don't know. I'm afraid sometimes that she's here just until she's figured out how to do this thing. That's very pessimistic approach and bad spots to begin with.
Sure. Well, it's an honest fear. And I appreciate you calling out the honest fear here. That's what a lot of men have said here as well is why is she here? Why is she still here? Does she want this relationship? Is she just pretending right now? Is she just waiting to get all of her ducks in a row before she leaves? That's a tremendously honest fear, Neboja, right? Yeah. So what do you think the next step for the two of you is? What do you foresee next?
Well, I really can't tell. This is going on since November. So the next step is she is seeing this Thursday. She is therapist, and after that, maybe we could talk about some peaceful agreement. That's her terms.
Okay, so we'll see what happens after that therapist meeting. And so let me ask Cynthia about your spot, Neboja. Uh, Imagine that he believes that she has to find some of her own depth. She's on a journey. His wife's on a journey of her own to find her heart again.
Mm.
She's lost herself in some way. And I don't know how much this has to do with the two of you or just her per se, Neboja, but imagine that he sees her a bit lost, that she's swimming in this ocean on her own and she's trying to find a life raft and it doesn't feel like him right now because she wants to find it on her own terms somehow. She wants to find that because of, let's go back to this idea that if she doesn't feel secure within her relationship because maybe she didn't see a secure relationship with her parents, that she's trying for emotional distance, she's wanting independence, she's wanting self-sufficiency, she has difficulty trusting because that's the only thing that she knows.
Mm.
And what if he as a man has understanding about that and allows her some space to swim on her own, to find some independence and some distance right now on her own terms, and doesn't try to fix that right now? What does that energy feel like for her?
When a woman all of a sudden feels like she's not being pressured to act a certain way, be a certain way, show up a certain way, and she's given some space to explore, uh, that can be like a deep breath of like, ah, for her. It also can be a place where she really has to really do face herself because if you're not there to push against, she really does have to feel what's going on with her. And I guess the last thing I would offer in that too is you as a man can allow her the spaciousness, but you're also wield tremendous power with the energy of your heart. And there's something really powerful for a woman to feel in a man, a powerful, open heart when you're grounded in like your hills to die on, your solidity. Uh, it's very compelling. And it also can be even the energy sense that she's trying to find in her own self is really coming from your own presence and your own okayness with what's going on.
Yeah, say more about the energy that's coming from his heart, his okayness. How do you mean?
So as a woman, I can feel in a man if he is kind of has some armor around his own heart because he's like, I'm gonna keep things safe. You don't want me, you don't want to receive me. So I'm gonna stay stoically here. And she can feel that as in you're not even there. Whereas in a man, if he has his boundaries, he has his hills I'm willing to die on. He knows his own worth. His roots are going deep into the ground, but he's also leaning into the courage of a heart that is open and warm. She can feel a kind of safety around him that she's never experienced before.
Without a need to fix right in this moment.
Without a need to fix. And there's actually kind of if we're talking about breaking the habits or patterns of attachment and avoidance, that's the kind of energy a man can emit from himself. That's the pattern break. That can actually shift how she responds and reacts.
So what would that look like for Neboja? Would that look like him asking less questions, of him feeling okay with the way things are at this moment, knowing he does want to move forward, but he's okay right now? What would that look like to a woman?
That energy of non-attachment and okayness with just the current moment is something that women are horrible at. And so if she gets to feel that in you, that is something new and different. And there's a lack of pressure there. It's not like you're giving up as a man your wants, your needs, your boundaries, but you're exuding kind of strength with the current moment that breeds in a woman respect and honor. And it doesn't give her the continued energy to like push away.
That he knows it's one chapter of life right now, and this is how he's facing that chapter, basically.
Yeah, and I can only imagine like it feels like giving up control. It feels like surrendering to something you don't want. But there's so much power in that idea that all of this is chapter by chapter, step by step. And each step is a different energy and a different breaking of old patterns and creating new ones.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, Neboja, so I'd encourage you to write about what you heard Cynthia say, what you heard us talking about here. Write about this for yourself. Email to me if you like. Okay, Neboja?
I did write it down all the time. Cynthia, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Neboja. You muted yourself right at the end there. I think that was a good time. Yeah, you're welcome.
I sorry, it happened again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I never talked to a woman with this perspective before. It was eye-opening. Thank you. I can see optimism, and I will try to do that. It's very hard to live in such an uncertainty.
Certainly. Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Neboja. Glad you're here. Let's take a step forward. Here's a quick story of a man that I've been working with for about 5-6 months. And this is some of his words at the beginning of our work together. And I want to ask Cynthia about this as well. And then we'll put a bow on today with some final takeaways. At the beginning of our work, he wrote about vulnerability. If we're talking about me being vulnerable in front of my wife, then I'm reasonably convinced that this is a turnoff and a negative for her. My vulnerability is interpreted as neediness, which plays directly against her dismissive avoidant instincts. These were his words, right? He found that label, let's say. As far as my wife showing her vulnerable side, she has a really tough time with this. A part of her sees the relationship as a win-lose scenario. You show vulnerability, and your partner could take advantage of that or see you as weak. And these are things that she experienced in childhood too. Going back a bit to give you more context, the slow but steady decline of their sex life also had a mixed starting point when we first got intimate. I think my wife has always wrestled with the traditional Catholic notion that sex was less than savory, if necessary for procreation, elements of a relationship. She was pretty active before we met, so it wasn't that she was anti-sex, more like it inspired a lot of mixed emotions. Guilt weighed heavily alongside enjoyment. So again, another factor of her childhood, right? Alongside this, I think her dismissive avoidant attachment style has meant that she sometimes feels threatened by next level sex, which Cynthia and I teach and talk about level 3 relationship, deep sex, right? Where there's a greater sense of connection. Correspondingly, the act is more about mechanics and less about a bonding experience. And again, a final note from him: when we began our work, I asked him this question: what about the combined experience with you brings more meaning to the act of intimacy? So, why is this more important? How is this more deep? How are you leading her as a man into something that's more meaningful within the act of sex and intimacy? And he simply wrote, there isn't a ton of meaning flying around. We have enough foreplay to make sure all appropriate parts are prepped. And then we take a shower in the aftermath, usually separately. So basically, he had no frame of meaning, no answer to where are you leading? Where do you want to go together in more meaningfulness within this act? So, Cynthia, even within hugging, kissing, time together, as Caesar was saying, even just time together, why is it important for, well, both of them together, but also the man, because that's who we're speaking with, the man to have this idea of more meaning around the act than just the physical act itself? Why is that so important, especially if she has childhood things going on as well?
Yeah, I mean, at first I feel the grief of, I imagine every man here wants to bring this kind of meaning to intimacy. And so if you're with an avoidant partner who seems, at least on the surface, like she's not invested in that and that's just the mechanics, that's painful. And the depth of that, the depth of the meaning you can bring as a man, even if she's not even aware of it yet, but it's the meaning I feel in your sacredness. It's the meaning I feel in the energy behind this work that you do. That's another thing that can be a pattern break. It can fly in the face of these, whether it's her little girl stories about sex or the religious stories about sex or the social reasons around sex. It can give her a different feeling of physical intimacy than she's ever had before. And again, if we're looking for her to have a different feeling, emotional, physiological experience, that's the thing that can shift her out of the strong arm, the I'm only safe if it's this way. I'm only okay if it's mechanical. Oh, I can only keep guilt and shame at bay if it's all surface level. And then I would just say that that is the gift that you bring in intimacy with that is is almost beyond words, even if it seems like in the moment she doesn't know how to take that in yet.
Yeah, that's well put. And this is what we love to teach and talk about. So if you have questions, we're going to do a few takeaways here in a moment. If you have questions, definitely reach out to us, post in the forum, post in comments if you're watching this on YouTube, or email me directly. And if you are watching this on YouTube, right, hit subscribe, hit thumbs up if you're liking what you're hearing. And if you want to check out our stuff, greatmenmovemountains.com is our website. We have free things, we have paid things. So check out our stuff.
The first thing you can do is go to the comments below, leave your questions. You also can go to the video details and click the link to access either our online digital product that's all about turning your marriage around, or even contact us to work with us one-on-one.
Okay, a few takeaways, and then we'll get a closing from Cynthia. It's not her job to make you happy. That's what we spoke about: putting the rudder into the water yourself, raising the mast yourself to sail toward where you want to be every day. And maybe that's a 5 minute journaling, prayer, walk outside, going to the gym for an hour. You need to find ways to bring joy into your own life. Number two is to figure out what you want one step at a time. And this is something we can help you with if you're confused on this, and telling her what you want. Like Caesar's story of invited her to go eat dinner. invited her to speak with him, invited her for a hug, one thing at a time in each chapter of this work, let's say. So you have to know what you want and then ask for what you want, tell her what you want. And number three, asking her to open her emotions with you, open her heart with you, open her soul with you. And these are things Cynthia was talking about today too. And that you as a man have to feel, she has to feel safety within you, that you're not trying to fix her like she's broken, but that you want to invite her to open her heart, open her soul, open her emotions. And so, why is that important overall? These small invitations to open herself. Well, how is that a calling to the feminine overall to open her heart, open her soul, open her emotions?
Yeah, and I think it's the asking to open over periods of time in really small ways. And that's a calling to her feminine because it's asking her to evolve out of surface level, maybe trying to be more robotic so she doesn't feel vulnerable, so she doesn't get hurt, so she feels in control. A woman can't just let that all go in the moment or in a big ask. You know, the feminine energy is really kind of a slower moving, slowly blossoming part of her. And so it's that kind of regular ask, those smaller asks to let her feel into something a little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit different.
Awesome. Very cool. So write down your questions, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Cynthia.
Okay.
Good to see you. See you guys next time. Ciao, guys. Bye.